Today on Personal Injury Court.
I was 600 feet up in the air. It was just unbelievable. But then all of a sudden it started to get windy. I started bouncing around. I looked down and the tow rope is gone.
Mr. Davis, how does that happen? He's this far up in the air and the tow line is gone?
I had to cut the tow rope.
You are asking this court for an award of $750,000.
Ever see cartoons with the cartoon characters like bounce, boom, 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 boom? That was me. All I know is all of a sudden then I hit a garbage can. Boom!
Judge Gino Brogdon spent 10 years on the bench ruling on cases worth billions of dollars. Now he presides over some of the largest claims in TV history. This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is the matter of Stone versus Davis and Gulf Views Parasailing. Mr. and Mrs. Stone, it's my understanding that you all are suing Mr. Davis for injuries that Mr. Stone sustained during a parasailing incident on Mr. Davis's boat. You're asking this court to award you $70,000 for past medicals, $30,000 for future medicals, $650,000 for pain and suffering,
yes,
for a total
Your
award
Honor.
of $750,000.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's
Yes,
correct,
Your
Your Honor.
And Mr. Davis, you believe that this is not your fault. This is something that happened that's outside your control, and you should not be held responsible.
That is correct, sir.
All right, well, let's get into the legal sauce. Why would you all choose parasailing?
Well, Your Honor, my husband and I, we've been married for 25 wonderful years. And
Congratulations.
we were able to finally retire. I'm a retired teacher, and I retired first. And my husband was a bus driver for 30 years, and he just recently retired. And we've always thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to finally take a vacation? We've always been super busy. So we thought, okay, our first vacation would be a 4-day mini vacation.
Mr. Stone, of all things, parasailing?
Right, but I always wanted to do that, okay? It was actually on my bucket list, but I couldn't do it because of my job. I worked for the city for 30 years driving a bus, and I could never really take off much time because I had to work nights, weekends, holidays. You know, that's why I was able to retire early, because I was able to save up enough and get out early while I was still young enough. I'm only 60, so I was still able to get out.
That's getting younger every day.
That's right. This was my love, and that's why we did this.
So you could cross this off the bucket list.
That's right.
Yes.
And get
Cross
to
this
number
off.
2.
That's right, and go on now to number 2.
Mr. Davis, tell me about your parasailing business.
Gulf Views started off as a modest business. It was a small business started by my pops. And we've been around for 27 years, top rated in the city. We get hundreds of reservations each month.
So this is a family business.
Yes, sir.
How did this happen?
We got to the dock around 4:45. The appointment wasn't until 5, but we wanted to get there early just to make sure we could just get everything taken care of. You know, whatever he had to go over with us. And Mr. Davis wasn't there. He didn't get there until 5:15, and he started to rush us. He did promise us that, don't worry, you'll get your time up in the air. You know, he was good about that. You know, but he just seemed to be in a hurry, you know.
Were you in a hurry, Mr. Davis?
No, sir. Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Stone, they were in a hurry. They were my last reservation for the day. And I was, in fact, running late, but that was due to a previous customer who had experienced motion sickness.
So you were late?
I was late, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But not in a hurry?
Not in a hurry, no.
Right.
No.
So what happened?
He put the harness on me, and you know, before I knew it, I was 600 feet up in the air, just flying. It was just unbelievable. The views, it was just awesome. As free as a bird.
Well, that's what you wanted, right?
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. But then all of a sudden it started to get windy. The wind started to blow. It just started to get a little crazy. I started bouncing around. At one point, my life kind of flashed in front of me. It was like, did I make a mistake in coming up here? You know, but I figured, well, they know what they're doing down there. They'll figure it out.
So you're 600 feet up in the air, hanging from this parachute.
Correct.
The wind starts blowing, and you're flapping around in the
That's right.
wind?
I'm flapping around like you can imagine. I look down, and the tow rope, or whatever they call it, is gone. Whoa. It's just like dropped. Now, I didn't know if it broke because of the wind. I had no idea what happened.
Mr. Davis, how does that happen? He's this far up in the air, and the tow line is gone?
I had to cut the tow rope. I had to make a careful assessment. Whenever I saw the winds getting out of hand and, you know, he was blowing, swaying back and forth, and what happens with that is he should land safely into the water. But unfortunately, it did not go that way.
So when you cut the tow line, He's supposed to float around up there in the air and then land in the water. That's the safest route.
That is the safest route, especially whenever the wind gets as volatile as it did unexpectedly at that moment, yes.
Mrs. Stone, tell me what you saw.
I knew that something was wrong, and I saw that my husband was freaking out, so I started freaking out. And Mr. Davis kept saying, oh, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, you'll be fine, you'll be fine.
All of a sudden, I'm flying, and I don't have wings. At that, a big gust of wind came along, and it just took me. And because we were so close to the shore, it just took me and ran me into the ground, you know, like a rock. Then I'm scraping along the ground, like, ever see cartoons with the cartoon characters like bounce, boom, 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 boom? That was me. I was bleeding, I had no idea what was going on, and it seemed like I was going on forever. All I know is all of a sudden then I hit a garbage can, boom! And that's what stopped me. Of course, then I woke up, there was blood everywhere, my skin was on fire, you know.
So you hit the sand and this trash can and ripped your ear off?
Well, yeah, I did lose my right ear.
Mr. Stone, you submitted to this court an animation. I want you to cross over to the plasma screen and walk me through this as to how this happened.
Okay, yes, Your Honor.
Take your time. So how did it happen?
Here's the boat, we're coming along, boat's moving pretty fast, the tow rope goes down, and then boom, that's me.
So as you slammed into this sand and hit that garbage can, you ripped your ear off and damaged your arm?
All I know is I was in a lot of pain. And I had no idea I lost my ear. I thought I just had a lot of blood here. I didn't know until later that I had lost my right ear. But we also have friends that were on the beach that were actually taking a video of me up there. And that can show a little bit more of how high up I was, as well as how close we were to the beach.
Coming up.
Now this is what your friends were taping.
Yeah,
That's
they were
you.
on the beach, and then there I am, and there I go.
I thought that my husband was dead.
It could have been so much worse if I would not have cut the tow line. I will emphasize that this was not my fault.
Well, what would have happened had you not cut the tow line?
He could have died. Unfortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Stone, they did not listen to the safety briefing before we even hit the water.
Come on.
All I know is all of a sudden then I hit a garbage can, boom! And that's what stopped me. We also have friends that were on the beach that were actually taking a video of me up there.
Mr. Stone, you submitted that video to this court. Let's take a look at it.
Correct.
Now this is what your
This is
friends
me.
were taping.
Yeah,
That's
they were
you.
on the beach and they knew something was wrong because they were screaming, and there I am, and there I go. Because you don't see me anymore because that's the beach.
Wow.
I hit the ground like a rock.
Mrs. Stone, you were sitting in the boat watching your husband sail away?
All of it, yes.
What were you thinking?
Devastation. I thought that my husband was dead, and we couldn't get to the shore fast enough. It was just a horrific, horrific experience.
Mr. Davis, what were you thinking? You're sitting in the boat, one of your customers, after you cut the tow line, starts sailing away, slams into the sand, and has really bad injuries.
It's actually unfortunate to watch that, Your Honor, and I am really so sorry that Mr. Stone was hurt. It could have been so much worse if I would not have cut the tow line. But I will emphasize that this was not my fault. This was very unexpected.
What would have happened had you not cut the tow line?
He could have died.
So you believe you saved his life by cutting the tow line?
I believe that I made a judgment call that actually saved his life.
Mr. Stone, you may return to the podium.
This life is not much, buddy.
Mr. Davis, this is not supposed to happen this way. You didn't have any other options other than cutting the tow line?
Unfortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Stone, they did not listen to the safety briefing before we even hit the water.
Come on.
Tell me about the safety briefing.
Yeah, the safety briefing, we go through various things that you need to know before you go parasailing, especially if you don't have any experience. I did. I tried.
Gentlemen, talk to me.
You know, if I would have gotten as much attention as you are getting here in the courtroom.
Second time, talk to me or I'm going to use my gavel. So you said you had something regarding the safety briefings.
Yes, I like to spend a reasonable amount of time on safety precautions.
And these are to keep the customer safe.
Exactly.
Now you brought some documents with you. What did you bring with you?
Next.
I said, can we go near the shore? And he said, yes.
But you did want to go close to the shore, true?
I had road rash over my whole body. I had face lacerations and a broken clavicle. I have to sleep in a recliner.
To better understand how this happened, this court has consulted an engineer, Miss Andrea Brown Milheisler.
The captain decided to cut the line, assuming that the parasailer would drop directly into the ocean.
Of course, then I woke up. There was blood everywhere. My skin was on fire. You know.
So you hit the sand and this trash can and ripped your ear off?
Yeah, I did lose my right ear.
It could have been so much worse if I would not have cut the tow line. But I will emphasize that this was not my fault. I brought a list of the safety precautions that I cover.
Sheriff Matt, will you retrieve those from Mr. Davis? Let me take a look at them. It reads parasailing guidelines. In the event of an emergency during your ride, please use the correct hand signals to alert your boat driver to bring you back down. That's number 4. Number 7 is fly at your own risk. You knew that you are flying at your own risk. I mean, that's kind of plain as the nose on my face. Now, did y'all rush him through this?
Well, the thing is, he was
late.
late. He was late, and I think that's why he rushed through everything.
They wanted to get closer to the shore so all their friends on the beach could take videos of them.
All I know is I remember saying to him, I said, can we go near the shore? And he said, yes, as long as
But you
it's safe.
did want to go close to the shore, true? If you hadn't been so close to the shore, then you land in the water.
Right, but he could have taken us away from the shore. Why didn't he do that?
Why didn't you take him away from the shore?
By the time we got that, that's when the wind picked up.
Mr. and Mrs. Stone, you are asking this court to award you $650,000 for pain and suffering, $70,000 for past medicals, and $30,000 for future medical expenses. Tell me how this experience has been.
I had road rash, okay, from up and down my arm, over my whole body.
And you got that from hitting the sand?
I got that from hitting the sand, okay, just being dragged along the sand.
Yeah, it took your skin off.
Took my skin completely off. I felt like my skin was on fire. You know, I had face lacerations. You can still see some of them here. I had a broken clavicle.
That can be a very painful break. When I was playing college football, a lot of guys would get that injury.
That's correct. But then the worst thing was, you know, I thought there was just blood coming out of this ear, and I lost my right ear completely. It got torn off, which explains the pain I was feeling when I was getting dragged along the beach.
Your Honor, this has turned our lives upside down. We're at home most of the time. I have to drive him everywhere. I have to make sure that he's taking care of his wounds.
She's basically a nurse now.
Mr. Davis,
Your Honor.
this is not supposed to happen, right?
No, it is not. I would call this a fluke, and it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry again for what's happened to them. This is something that I did not foresee coming. I cannot control the weather.
To better understand how this happened, this court has consulted an engineer, Miss Andrea Brown Milheisler. Sheriff, will you get Miss Milheisler here?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good day, ma'am. Can you explain how an accident like this happens?
I have a diagram to help simplify that. As you can see, the forward momentum or velocity, shown as V in this diagram, creates a wind force. Now, this wind force is what works with a special design of the parasail to create an upward force, known as lift.
And the lift that you talk about is what we see when the parasailer goes up into the air.
Yes.
Now, the testimony in this case is that the tow line had to be cut, and the plan was for Mr. Stone to land in the water. How does he end up getting dragged and tumbling on the sand?
Had he been operating in a vacuum, he would have dropped directly into the water. But there were wind gusts coming in off of the ocean toward the shore. Now, these forces of wind would have been acting perpendicular to the motion of the boat, as well as the forward movement of the parasail. And this would have created a lot of turbulence in the parasail. And because of the tautness of the line from the boat, it also would have caused turbulence in the boat. So instead of creating a potentially dangerous effect for himself and everyone on the boat, the captain decided to cut the line, assuming that the parasailer would drop directly into the ocean and have a safe water landing while also maintaining the safety of his vessel and the people aboard.
Thank you, ma'am. You are released. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
This close to shore thing really kind of bugs me. Aren't you the captain of the ship?
I was too close to the shore at 600 feet, which he wanted to keep going higher and higher.
He's the boss.
At
He's
600
riding
feet,
the boat.
Well, the customer technically is the boss.
You do admit that you asked to get closer to shore.
If it was safe.
All right, I think I've heard what I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision.
The verdict is in.
When you're a business owner that sells a dangerous thrill-seeker experience, you have certain responsibilities. When you're the customer seeking and paying for thrill-seeking experiences, you have certain responsibilities. You must take your time and listen to the safety instructions and follow them. Here, the customer is wrong, and you are wrong to adhere to their request. You do admit that you asked to get closer to shore.
If it was safe.
All right, I think I've heard what I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, to win a personal injury case, the plaintiff has to basically build a three-legged stool. You have to prove the first leg that the defendant did something wrong. The second leg is that that wrong caused the third leg, your injuries and harm. Here, you all have put up evidence that the defendant took you close to shore and assured you that it was safe and did not anticipate the wind. Then he cut the tow line and let you sail to an injury and a changed destiny. You actually lost your ear. Mr. Davis, you've put up evidence that these folks rushed you through the safety instructions. It was them that wanted to get too close to the shore and that you had no choice but to cut the tow line because the wind came out of nowhere and this is not your fault. The legal principle that is highlighted in this case is inherently dangerous activities, and what do you do about it? When you're a business owner that sells a dangerous thrill-seeker experience, you have certain responsibilities. When you're the customer seeking and paying for thrill-seeking experiences, you have certain responsibilities. As the customer, you must take your time and listen to the safety instructions and follow them. When you do that, the burden is on the defendant to keep you safe. As the holder of the dangerous instrumentality, that is the boat and the parasail, the law imposes upon you to treat safety important at every stage. I didn't hear once in this case that you told Mr. and Mrs. Stone that a time may come where you have to cut the tow line and let him sail away. That is very, very, very important. And if it's not safe to go close to the shore, you as the ultimate holder of safety have to tell them no. Here, the customer, even if they requested that, the customer is wrong, and you are wrong to adhere to their request. I find that you have proven that the defendant is wrong, that the defendant should have instructed you, that the defendant should not have let you get close to the shore. I find in favor of the plaintiff and against the defendant, and I award you $750,000.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
That is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned.
Today on Personal Injury Court.
Your son struck his head like that?
He did, Your Honor.
I couldn't stop it, and I couldn't control it.
And when a bone moves forward, it can pull the nerves with it. It can tear a nerve. That can cause anything from paralysis to death.
So this is a very serious injury.
Very serious.
You're asking this court to award you $2.2 million.
Being the guy that I am with safety, here's the pamphlet that I sent out. I did my part. It is not my fault.
This has got to scare you to death.
It's the parent's worst nightmare.
Judge Gino Brogdon spent 10 years on the bench ruling on cases worth billions of dollars. Now he presides over some of the largest claims in TV history. This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is the matter of Campbell versus Gold. Ms. Campbell, it's my understanding from the documents that you submitted to this court that you are suing Mr. Gold for injuries that your son sustained while your son was at Mr. Gold's lake house. You're asking this court to award you $100,000 for your son's medical expenses, $100,000 for his future medical expenses, and $2 million for pain and suffering, for a total award of $2.2 million. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And your son will be joining us here from the hospital. My understanding is he's not able to come to court physically. Is that true?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, now, Mr. Gold, you had the lake house. Miss Campbell's son was there. You believe that you gave them everything they needed to be safe and that he just didn't handle it right and he's responsible for his own injuries.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, let's get into the legal sauce. Now, Miss Campbell, how did your son come to Mr. Gold's lake house?
Your Honor, my son Brian has played for Coach Gold, Mr. Gold, his basketball team for the last 10 years, since he was 7. I'm a single mom, and we do not have extra money to go on vacation. Coach Gold had invited the entire basketball team up to his lake house for fun, food, fellowship, water sports. My son is a great basketball player as well, but he loves the outdoors, and we were just excited just to spend time with one another, really have a family vacation.
So Mr. Gold coached your son?
Yes, he did for 10 years.
That's a long time. Coach, you remember raising these guys as basketball players?
Your Honor, they're like family to me.
Because I know my boys had a bunch of coaches. They were like second dads. Were you like a second dad to Miss Campbell's son?
Yeah, you could really say that.
So how did the boys get to your lake house that day? What brought everybody there?
We had a tournament, so I figured after that tournament, let's get everybody together.
I've been to many of those.
Celebrate that type of thing. So, we had everybody up.
So, Ms. Campbell, how did your son get injured?
Your Honor, that day I was in charge of the food. Coach Gold had put me and another mom in charge of feeding, I believe it's 12 boys, teenage boys.
That requires a lot of food.
Right? So
Yes,
Veronica, my daughter, her and Brian, went to the marina with the other guys. They were going to be riding the watercrafts.
Okay.
He left, bye, Mom, love you, be careful, what any parent would say. So we get to busy separating the cheeses, and all of a sudden, I believe his name is Terrence, opens the door, runs in, and says, there's been an accident. Well, right then, what any parent would do, I can't even remember. I know I threw this back.
Your heart must have sunk.
Boom, I was out the door.
Yes, ma'am.
Running. As soon as I got there, someone said it was Brian. It was my Brian. So I did what any Christian woman would do. I got to my knees and prayed to Jesus, Lord, please don't take him, because he looked dead. Your Honor, he was not moving.
Yes, ma'am. I know that had to be
No
tough.
parent should have to see that, no.
Yes, ma'am. Now, Ms. Campbell, you submitted a video to this court where one of the kids actually caught this on tape, right?
Yes.
Well, is it okay that I play it right now?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's put it up on the plasma. Here it is. Oh, whoa. Your son struck his head like that?
He did, Your Honor.
Now, Mr. Gold, you were there that day, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
How did you know something? Well, first of all, where were you when this happened?
As I get everybody checked in, once I get to the back of the line, I now see Brian, and he's going pretty fast. Before I could even yell out or blow the horn, anything, in a matter of seconds, he hit the sand dune and he just, I could still hear it.
That was ugly. That made a pit in my stomach.
Yeah, that's
now,
what
Miss
it was.
Campbell, your son Brian is still at Good Samaritan Hospital. He was not able to physically come to court. So, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me what happened out there.
When my sister got a phone call, I hopped on the watercraft by myself, and I hit the throttle, and I started heading away from the dock. And I liked cutting tight turns because I liked spraying the water up on my friends, and it was just a good time. But then all of a sudden, I couldn't stop it, and I couldn't control it, and there was a sandbar right in front of me, and I started heading straight for it, and I blacked out, and that's the last thing I remember.
I understand, Brian, that your neck, your cervical spine was fractured.
Yes, sir. I had a major surgery to repair it.
You see, he's in a lot of pain, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
I know that must tug on you, being that you've coached him for so long.
It does. It's hard to really, because of where we're at in a court of law.
Yes, sir.
I have to take the defensive, even though I don't like to say blame and all of that type of stuff, especially with one of my kids. But, one thing I can say is that he was given safety lessons.
What kind of safety lessons?
Well, actually, Your Honor, I actually brought an illustration. If you would allow me to, I could demonstrate some things for you.
Sure, I want to understand this, sir. Now, this is an exhibit that you submitted to this court. Tell me what we're looking at.
Coming up,
You have to recognize the nautical markers. You need to slow down so that you can come back into this area. Brian didn't slow down.
Brian, did you get safety instructions from Coach Gold? This court has consulted Dr. Hadari Brooks. How do you repair an injury like this?
So we use 2 plates and 4 screws. Plates and screws are designed to stay in your whole life.
So he will have these in until he's an old man.
Exactly.
Oh, your son struck his head like that?
He did, Your Honor.
Couldn't stop it, and I couldn't control it.
He was given safety lessons.
What kind of safety lessons?
Well, actually, Your Honor, I actually brought an illustration. This here's the dock, right here, and this is where all the families were lined up at when I checked everything off.
Okay.
So I'm checking everything off back in this area here. Watercraft is here. They take off, they go, then they come back this way. First thing that I tell them, you have to wear your life vest. First thing, looked like that was done. That's the first one. Next thing is you have to travel at a safe rate of speed. Now, also you have to recognize the nautical markers, the no wake zones. You need to slow down so that you can come back into this area. Brian didn't slow down. So as he came this way, he realized where he was and he tried to come in, but he was going too fast. So he came in on this side.
Okay. So, Mr. Gold, you keep saying that you told them about safety. Who is them?
The parents and the children.
Brian, did you get safety instructions from Coach Gold?
Yes, Your Honor. He gave a short safety presentation and demo. I was trying to follow the rules, but I couldn't control it. I don't know what happened.
The same thing with putting him into a car. You just don't show him where everything is, give him the keys, say, go on. No, you
Your expectation was that there was going to be somebody with him.
Absolutely.
Mine also. My expectation was that also.
So, Mr. Gold, did you ever think of riding with these kids?
No.
To make sure that all the safety stuff that you said would be adhered to?
No, this is why.
Or if the brakes work properly, maybe?
This is why I had them to actually sign off on an adult being with them.
So, Ms. Campbell, what's your understanding of what the future is like for your son?
We don't know, Your Honor. We don't know. Brian was being recruited by 4 major universities. He was supposed to make his decision in 3 weeks. We don't know if he'll ever play again.
Well, I want to get a better idea of the medical nature of his injuries. So this court has consulted Dr. Hadari Brooks, who's an orthopedic surgeon. We're going to hear from him. Sheriff, would you get Dr. Brooks?
Yes, Your Honor.
Hello, doctor. How are you?
Hello, Your Honor.
Could you state your name for the record?
Dr. D. Hodari Brooks.
Dr. Brooks, what's the nature of Brian's injuries?
Next.
I have an email that I actually sent to all the parents.
Anyone under age 18 must be accompanied by an adult. Who did you think was going to ride with Brian on this day? For the record, you are Brian's older sister.
That is correct, Your Honor.
And you were there that day, right?
I was there.
What do you remember about this day? I think I've heard everything I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision. Oh, your son struck his head like that?
He did, Your Honor.
Couldn't stop it, and I couldn't control it.
I understand, Brian, that your neck, your cervical spine was fractured.
Yes, sir.
This court has consulted Dr. Hadari Brooks. Dr. Brooks, what's the nature of Brian's injury?
He sustained a broken arm, but his more significant injury was a fractured dislocation of his cervical spine.
And break that down in layman's terms. What's that mean?
Okay. And so the number of bones in the cervical spine are 7. Here we can see a diagram of C3 sitting on top of C4. The front or the throat would be here, the back would be here. The important thing to note is that this C3 bone is sitting forward of the C4 bone. That's very bad because the spinal cord sits here, and when a bone moves forward, it can pull the nerves with it, it can tear a nerve, or it can stretch a nerve, and that can cause anything from paralysis to death.
So this is a very serious injury.
Very serious.
How do you repair an injury like this?
So we make an incision from the base of the skull down about 3 or 4 inches.
Okay.
You come through the fat, which is yellow here, red is muscle, and then now you're down to bone. So what you have to do is now stabilize C3 on top of C4. So we use 2 plates and 4 screws.
When does Brian get this equipment taken out of his neck?
So the plates and screws, believe it or not, are designed to stay in your whole life.
So he will have these in until he's an old man?
Exactly.
Doctor, thank you so much for your testimony. You are released.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Campbell, this has got to scare you to death.
It's a parent's worst nightmare.
Do you take any responsibility for not watching your son?
For that day,
Yes, ma'am.
absolutely not. And the only reason is because I was assigned to cook. I wasn't there. He knew I wasn't there. He asked me to cook.
Your Honor, I have an email that I actually sent to all the parents.
And you brought that with you?
I brought that with bailiff. Could you get
Sheriff, if you could get the email.
Please.
Permission to ride, permission not to drive.
So, you know, she signed that.
Permission to ride.
And do you recall getting an email, Ms. Campbell, of this sort?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the email reads, looking forward to seeing everyone. This is from you, Coach, right?
Yes.
Attached, please find a permission slip, safety tip brochure, and boater's guidelines. Anyone under age 18 must be accompanied by an adult if they are planning to ride the watercrafts. Well, who did you think was going to ride with Brian on this day?
The adult that his mother sent down there in a supervisory role, her daughter.
Did you send Veronica down in a supervisory role, as the coach says?
I did. I sent Veronica down to ride with Brian.
Veronica, will you stand and come to the podium, please? State your name for the court.
Veronica Campbell.
For the record, you are Brian's older sister.
That is correct, Your Honor.
And you were there that day, right?
I was there.
And you're 21 years old.
I am 21 years old.
What do you remember about this day?
Well, I was in line with my brother to go ride the watercraft.
Okay.
And I got a phone call that was from my boyfriend, and he's actually serving in the Air Force right now, and he was going through boot camp, and I hadn't heard from him in weeks. So, of course, I made a huge fuss over the excitement of this. I said, I gotta take this, and I stepped away.
Did you tell him that you were stepping away?
I told everyone in line.
Did you see her step away from the line?
Not at all, Your Honor.
What were you doing?
You just asked her, did she tell me? And she could not say that she did.
I told everyone.
But Coach, wait a minute. Wait a minute, Coach.
Here that sent somebody out there in a supervisory role that just wasn't made up to do it.
Coach, hold on. I want to go into the common sense zone. This is your property.
Yes.
Your watercrafts.
Yes.
Yep.
Your team.
Yes.
Yep.
Even kind of your son.
Yes.
Your responsibility.
Yeah, and I take some of the responsibility to the point of that is my watercraft. But me, being the guy that I am with safety, here's the pamphlet that I sent out.
A pamphlet.
They all read it. Well, let me change that. They all clicked on the link saying that they read it. I had
Coach, see the problem here. Here's the problem for me.
Okay.
You were the last line of defense.
And I'm saying the first line of defense is the parent. I did my part. It is not my fault.
I think I've heard everything I need to hear. I'm ready to render my decision.
The verdict is in.
Ms. Campbell, you believe that Coach Gold should have supervised your son when Veronica stepped away. And Coach, you say you told everybody, all the parents, be safe, and here's a link, here's a brochure, here's everything you need to keep your children safe.
Here's the pamphlet that I sent out. It is not my fault.
I hopped on the watercraft by myself, and I hit the throttle. There's a sandbar right in front of me.
I send Veronica down to ride with Brian.
I got a phone call and I stepped away.
I'm ready to render my decision. Folks, in every personal injury case, the plaintiff, that is you, Miss Campbell, on behalf of your son, Brian, must prove that Coach Gold committed a wrong and that his wrong caused Brian's injuries. Here today, you have shown that adult supervision was required. In fact, Coach, you expected adults to supervise the kids. Miss Campbell, you believe that Coach Gold should have supervised your son when Veronica stepped away.
Absolutely.
And that when he didn't, he exposed your son to danger that left him in this hospital state with $200,000 in medical expenses and a really uncertain future. You hold him solely responsible for this.
Absolutely.
And Coach, you say you told everybody, all the parents, be safe, and here's a link, here's a brochure, here's everything you need to keep your children safe. The law looks at everybody's behavior. If Brian is out there under your supervision, you are responsible because you invited him to your property and you must take certain care because he's within your zone of safety. There's none of this. But as a parent, and frankly, beating up a little bit on Veronica stepping away, that's something I've got to consider. You not being there, I've got to consider that too. I find that you have proven that Mr. Gold was wrong, that he should have been supervising Brian. But I don't think he was all wrong. The law allows a judge like me to compare the conduct of people or compare their negligence or responsibility for an incident like this. It's called comparative negligence. Here, Mr. Gold, based on the evidence, I find you 50% responsible for Brian's injuries. Miss Campbell, I find Brian 50% responsible for his own injuries. He was not a baby. The law requires that he take care of himself and be safe because safety applies to everyone. The law also requires me as a judge to weigh the negligence of the parties. Where it's 50-50, regardless of how severe the injuries are, I must find for Mr. Gold because the law says the plaintiffs lose when it's 50-50. Because you're 50-50 responsible, I find in your favor a verdict for the defendant. That is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned. I don't want you to let this verdict slow you down or get in your way. You are going to be fine. Stay strong, heal well, and do the things that life has intended for you. I'm going to check up on you, actually.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.